You wake up choking on the smell of your own sweat. Your head feels like it's splitting open from the inside. Your throat is dry, but the second you try to swallow, your stomach twists like it knows something is wrong. You sit up too fast, and the room tilts, like your body is already giving up on balance, already giving up on you. Then you feel the pain in your neck. It's deep, sharp, like someone drove a nail under your jaw. You raise your hand, your fingers shaking, and press into the spot, and you feel it. A lump, not a sore throat, not a swollen gland, like when you're getting over a cold. This is different. It's hard, hot, angry. It's the size of a grape right now, but you swear you can feel it growing under your skin, like something alive has moved into your body and is expanding in there. The pain is immediate and sickening. You pull your hand away, and your palm is slick with sweat. You don't know what it is yet, but your body does. By the end of today, it will be the size of an egg. By tomorrow, it could be the size of an apple. And in a few days, if you make it that far, it will darken purple, then black-like. The flesh is dying while you're still awake enough to feel it. Your fever surges, and suddenly you're not cold anymore. You're burning, like you've been tossed into a furnace. Your heartbeat is pounding in your ears. You try to stand, but your legs feel wrong, weak, rubbery, unreliable. You stumble to a bowl of water and drink too fast. It comes right back up, and then the fear hits you. Not normal fear, not "I'm sick" fear, something primal. Because deep down, you already know what this is. You've heard the stories. You've heard the screaming from the house down the road. You've smelled the smoke from all the herbs people keep burning in the streets. You've seen the carts rolling past, with bodies stacked on top of each other, limbs dangling, faces covered. You've heard the priests whispering that it's a punishment. You've heard the neighbors saying it's in the air. You've heard people praying so hard their voices crack. And now it's in you. This is the Black Death. And you are not going to survive it. Because from this point on, everything around you becomes a trap. Your body, your home, your family, your city, your entire world. And it starts with what happens next. The symptoms don't build slowly. They explode. The fever gets worse, much worse. It doesn't just make you hot, it cooks you. Your skin feels like it's stretched too tight across your bones. Sweat pours off you. Your clothes cling to your body. You can't think clearly. The simplest thoughts drift away like smoke. Your head pounds, your vision blurs. Sometimes you're awake, sometimes you're not, and you can't always tell the difference. Then the pain spreads. The lump in your neck isn't alone anymore. Another one forms under your arm, one in your groin. More of them. Swollen, throbbing masses under the skin. These are buboes. They're infected lymph nodes, and they become grotesque, hard knots of flesh that swell until it looks like something is trying to break out of you. They hurt so badly that turning your body feels like being stabbed. The skin over them stretches and shines. Some people can't even walk because of the ones in the groin. They crawl. They drag themselves across floors. They beg for help. And sometimes those buboes burst. Not gently, not cleanly. They rupture like an overfilled wound, spilling pus and blood and infection into the world. The smell is thick and metallic and rotten, like your body has become a decaying animal while you're still alive enough to feel the humiliation of it. You try to sleep, but sleep won't stay. You fall into it and wake up gasping. You feel like you're drowning on dry land. You try to speak, but your mouth is dry and your tongue feels too big. Your voice cracks, and you hear how weak you sound. And that's when you notice your fingers. They look Wrong. At first, you think it's dirt or shadow, but it doesn't wipe off. It's darkness under the skin, bruising that spreads, the tips of your fingers turning a sick, dead color. Your toes too, black patches blooming like ink, spilled into flesh. That's not just a symptom. That's a warning. Your blood is failing. Your body is bleeding internally. Your circulation is collapsing. Tissue is dying. This is where the Black Death gets its name. Not because it's poetic, but because it literally turns parts of you black. And the clock is already ticking. For most people, once the symptoms hit, you have 3 to 7 days. 3 to 7 days between feeling that first lump and being thrown into a pit with dozens of other bodies. And the worst part? You don't even die peacefully. Some victims vomit blood. Some bleed from the nose. Some can't stop coughing, hacking so hard their ribs ache until their lungs start filling with fluid. Some people go insane from fever and delirium. They see shapes in the corners of rooms. They hear voices. They scream at people who aren't there. Others go quiet, too weak to move, staring at the ceiling, eyes glassy, breath shallow. But you can't even rely on your mind to stay yours. And that's when you realize the Black Death isn't just killing your body, it's stealing you first. And while you're falling apart, nobody knows what to do. That's the second reason you wouldn't survive. Because in the 1300s, people didn't know about bacteria. They didn't know about germs. They didn't know about fleas. They didn't know about rats. They didn't know anything. They knew death. That's it. So they looked for explanations that made sense in a medieval world. They said it was God. They said it was punishment for sin, for greed, for lust, for lying, for not praying enough, for praying the wrong way, for existing wrong. They said the planets were aligned in a cursed way. They said a comet poisoned the air. They said foreigners brought it. They said certain groups had caused it on purpose. And that last part, that's where terror turned into cruelty, because when people don't understand something that's killing them, they don't just panic. They search for someone to blame, and they do terrible things to whoever they decide deserves it. Meanwhile, doctors tried to help, but their help was a nightmare, because the medicine of the time was based on balancing humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. If you were sick, it meant your humors were off, so they drained you. Bloodletting. Imagine you're already dehydrated, already shaking, already barely holding on, and someone comes in with a blade and says, "This will cure you." And then they cut your arm open and let you bleed. Your vision goes white. Your body weakens further. Your immune system, what little chance it had, collapses. Or they force you to drink disgusting mixtures. Mercury, vinegar, unknown, powders, ground up things that were supposed to be purifying. Some people were told to eat crushed emeralds, like that would help. People burned herbs in streets. They carried flowers and spices to protect them from bad air. That's where the plague doctor mask comes from. The long beak stuffed with herbs to filter out poison in the air. It looked terrifying, like a human bird watching death happen. But it didn't protect anyone, because the problem wasn't air. It was fleas and rats and bodies and close contact, and none of that was understood. So the treatments didn't just fail, they made it worse. Doctors would go from house to house, touching the sick, lancing buboes, wiping sweat, handling corpses, and then walking straight into the next home without washing anything. They became walking death machines, and many of them knew it, so they ran. If you were lucky enough to find a doctor, you were unlucky enough to have them near you, because your chances weren't low. Your chances were almost non-existent, and even if you tried to escape the plague, it moved faster than you could. That's the third reason. It spread faster than you could run. The Black Death traveled along trade routes like it had a map. Merchant ships carried goods, and rats hiding in the cargo. Those rats were infested with fleas, and the fleas carried the bacteria that would destroy your life. When those ships arrived in port cities, people didn't see a disease. They saw opportunity. They unloaded supplies. They opened crates. They welcomed traders. They crowded markets, and the plague slipped in quietly. By the time people realized what was happening, it was already everywhere. In cities, conditions were perfect for it. Streets were filthy. Sewage ran openly. Animals wandered through crowds. People lived packed together in wooden houses, often with multiple families sharing space. Everyone was close. Everyone was connected. And connection meant death. You could do everything right and still lose. You could stay home, avoid crowds, keep away from the sick. But what happens when the plague doesn't just travel through bites? What happens when it becomes airborne? Because while bubonic plague spreads through fleas, the Black Death also appeared as pneumonic plague, which attacks the lungs. And that means coughing spreads it, breathing spreads it, speaking spreads it. Imagine hearing a cough behind you in a church. One cough, you turn your head, and 2 days later, you're the one coughing blood. That's how fast it moved. It didn't need permission. It didn't need a mistake. It didn't need you to mess up. It only needed you to be human in a human world. It moved through towns like fire, through dry grass, sometimes so quickly that people died before they even understood the disease had arrived. And once it arrived, everything collapsed. That's the fourth reason. Society didn't just struggle, it broke. At first, death is shocking. People cry, they pray, they hold funerals. But then the funerals become too many. The bells ring all day, every hour, another body, another family destroyed, another household empty. Then people stop holding funerals, not because they don't care, because there's no time, because there's no one left to carry coffins, because priests are dead, and gravediggers can't keep up. Bodies start piling in homes, in streets, in alleyways. You open your door, and the smell hits you first, sweet, thick, unbearable. People drag the dead outside because they can't stand to sleep next to them. Carts roll through town collecting corpses. Not gently, not respectfully. They stack them like wood, heads lolling, arms dangling, dead eyes staring at nothing. Mass graves are dug. Huge pits where bodies are thrown in layers. No names, no prayers, no rites. Just one more corpse, one more corpse, one more corpse. And the living begin to realize something horrifying. There isn't anyone in charge anymore. Police, if they exist, are sick or gone. City officials have fled. Courts don't meet. Laws aren't enforced. If someone steals from you, who do you report it to? If someone breaks into your home, who stops them? If you scream for help, who comes? Sometimes the only answer is silence. And in that silence, people change. Some become reckless. They drink, gamble, feast, and sleep around like nothing matters. Like if death is certain, then shame is pointless. Others become paranoid. They lock themselves inside their houses and refuse to open the door for anyone, friends, neighbors, even family. Because kindness is dangerous. Being human is dangerous. And when enough people start thinking like that, the entire idea of a society dissolves. It turns into survival, pure survival. And that brings us to the fifth reason you wouldn't survive. Your family would turn on you. And that sounds dramatic. It sounds cruel. But it's what happened. Imagine your mother notices you sweating, or your child has a fever, or your spouse says their throat hurts. At first, you want to help. You want to hold them. You want to comfort them. Then you remember what you've seen. You remember the neighbor who tried to care for his wife and died beside her. You remember the father who stayed to comfort his sick son and ended up dead within days. You remember the entire household across the street, gone. So fear takes over, and fear makes people do the unthinkable. Infected family members were locked inside their own homes, doors nailed shut, windows boarded. Sometimes guards were posted outside to prevent anyone from leaving. Imagine being sick, delirious, begging for water, and hearing hammering outside as someone nails your door closed. Imagine realizing you're being trapped inside a building with your own death. Parents abandoned sick children. Children ran from sick parents. It wasn't rare, it was common. Because in a world where one touch could kill you, love became a risk, and not everyone was brave enough to take it. So you died alone. Not just alone, as in no one was there. Alone, as in the people who loved you the most chose to walk away because the alternative was joining you. That's a psychological horror modern people can barely understand. Not just the pain of the disease, but the emotional collapse of everything you believed about loyalty, family, and safety. And even if by some miracle you survived the illness itself, you still weren't safe. That's the sixth reason. Because surviving didn't mean life went back to normal. It meant you woke up in a world that had become hell. Entire farms were abandoned. Crops rotted in fields because there weren't enough hands to harvest them. Animals wandered into empty villages. Houses stood open, untouched, like the people inside vanished into thin air. Trade slowed, markets emptied, craftsmen died, merchants disappeared, whole industries collapsed because the people who ran them were gone. In the short term, food shortages hit hard, not everywhere at once, but in waves. Some places couldn't move supplies, some couldn't protect them, some simply didn't have enough people left to function. And lawlessness spread. When authority collapses, predators rise. Bandits roamed the countryside. Looters picked through abandoned homes. Some people killed for supplies, others killed because they knew they wouldn't be punished. And the survivors? They carried trauma like a second skin. Imagine walking through your town and recognizing no one. Imagine every house you pass has a memory attached to someone who's dead. Imagine going to church and seeing empty benches where entire families used to sit. Imagine looking at the face of the last person you know and realizing they're next. Because the plague didn't just come once, it returned again and again for centuries. So even after you survived one wave, you'd live under constant dread that it would come back, that the coughing would start again, that the bells would ring again. People developed a kind of numbness, a hard edge. Some became deeply religious, convinced life was fragile and temporary. Others became cynical, believing nothing mattered. The world after the Black Death was not the same. It changed Europe permanently. Economies shifted. Labor became more valuable because workers were scarce, social structures cracked, and the psychological scar ran through generations. But none of that would comfort you if you were actually there, because history isn't comforting when you're living in it. All you'd feel is loss, hunger, fear, and exhaustion. It was a complete system failure of human life. Your body would betray you in the most horrific way possible. Swollen buboes, blackened flesh, bleeding, delirium. No one would know what caused it. Doctors would drain your blood and pray over herbs while the real killer kept spreading. You couldn't outrun it. It traveled faster than information, faster than panic, along ships, roads, and crowds, turning trade routes into highways of death. Society would collapse around you, bodies in the streets, mass graves, priests gone, laws meaningless. Your family, your own people, might lock you away or abandon you because love was too dangerous to risk. And even if you survived, the world you'd wake up to would be shattered. Collapsed economies, food shortages, lawlessness, and trauma so deep you'd never fully recover. This is why the Black Death remains one of the worst catastrophes in human history. Between 1347 and 1353, it killed an estimated one-third of Europe. Globally, historians estimate somewhere between 75 and 200 million people died. That's not a tragedy. That's a planet-wide nightmare. And if you were there, without antibiotics, without knowledge, without protection, without understanding, you wouldn't be the heroic survivor in the movie. You wouldn't be the lucky exception. You'd be like most people, a name that never got written down, a body in a pit, a story that ended in less than a week, and you probably wouldn't have made it.